Howdy there, Pro. Dave, Jeremy, Critus, hey Jim, VJ, PR. This is the board that had all the different bits of corrosion on it from the other night, and the one that we also fixed up replaced the trackpad keyboard combo cable last night. And so now I'm just finally getting to the point where I reassemble the whole thing. I made that a little bit too tight. Oh, there we go. Give it a good solid bit of back and forth rubbing like that. That makes sure that that little strip of thermal transfer compound is spread out very, very, very thin, but across the entire surface, so as to ensure that it does its job well. Hey, Tim Donnelly, Alexi, I didn't reply to your email properly, I'm sorry, I forgot about that. Been busy all day. Busy seemingly doing nothing, I think. Hey, Joseph. Yeah, I just realised I've got to get a replacement flat flex cable. Need to get rid of that one. Oh, and I also did ultrasonic the DC board, because obviously we did some rework on it. Evelyn? Keith, how's it going? Fortunately for these MacBook Airs, they don't need a massive amount of, heat sinking. I know they run them hot, and it would be nice if they sort of maxed them out at closer to, say, 90 rather than 100. But they generally have stood the test of time at least, so that's a good thing. For the most part, the majority of their use is not running things like valley test or high thermal strain tests. Most of the time it's just a bit of casual surfing on the internet with a bit of YouTube and maybe some email. So for the intended audience, they get away with it. Hey there, warrant stamps. Neiman. Yank the wireless cable out a bit aggressively, and as a consequence it's kind of pulled up out of its routing. It's okay, we'll jam it back down there. Hey Newmara, good to see you're still kicking though. I'd be worried if you didn't turn up, then we'd have to send out a search party for you. And hopefully wouldn't find you with a dingo gnawing on your leg. We actually get a few dingoes just over the hill around here. They don't tend to come down too close. Mind you, there's most certainly not pure breed dingoes. They are mongrelized, which is unfortunate, but yeah, they're around. As a kid, we had a dingo Labrador dog. It was quite a nice dog. Only the black crows to eat from the stomach. Oh, that's just worse. Are you trying to associate your... You trying to infer that you're a toad? Because I know that's what they do with the toads around here, is they'll flip them over and peck their guts out. Or was that just an accidental association then? Hey Steve W. I sort of do this work every day, but I've been lucky that I've had a rise in the sort of jobs that I can actually do on a live stream. Previously, I was maxed out on the queue with jobs that I really couldn't go showing on stream too much. I mean, I could, but I'd probably make a mistake, and I don't mean in terms of doing a bad repair. I mean, I do that every night. I mean in terms of revealing details that I'm not really meant to. Get crows chasing the farmer's lambs. That does happen, yeah. I mean, it's... nature is hilariously cruel in so many ways. I guess it's sort of in many ways very apathetic. It is what it is. It doesn't mean you have to like it. Doesn't mean you have to agree with it either. Doesn't mean you can't do what you can to try and make it better. Hey Raj, do you still need a 1706 chassis? The screens aren't a problem because I've got 1708 screens, which of course will fit on the 1706. I was trying to think. I guess yes. The answer is yes. I ordered a 1706 lower chassis from someone over in Hawaii, I think. But if you've got one as well, I like to have, if I can, two chassis on hand. So even if they got a dud screen, I'm fine with that. Right, that goes into the rubbish. Actually, it doesn't go into the rubbish, it goes into my little baggie. You take much less of a YOLO approach to the repairs than Lewis. I'm kind of curious what your interpretation of that is, or your implication of that is. I'm not sure. I'll assume a compliment. No. Assume a compliment and be less offended in the day. Who invented or made the flat battery like this one? Well, I guess it's sort of a consequence of the lithium flat packs. As opposed to the cylindrical cells. Hey Travis, see, you're not banned. Told you weren't banned. You're just being a drama queen the other night when you were saying you were. Hey Rilla. Yes, you were here yesterday. I do agree. I just thought maybe you thought that was a one-off lucky situation. The green just tells me that it was a successful repair. Let's stick this into my archive. My job archive container's starting to get full. I'm going to have to put that into another box or something. Okay. Right, we need to go get a flat flex. I'll just see if I've got any in here. Oh, that's the other thing. I need to put that flat flex in that zip bag too. It's going to be a bit of a squeeze. So I keep all the parts best I can, simply because of the fact that, you know, if you are ever questioned on what you did with the repair, it's good to go, there you go, these are the parts I replaced. And then everybody's happy, in theory. Unless they were trying to scam you, in which case they won't be happy. Oh, I forgot, I doubt that Graham from Adamant IT is here, but I just wanted to show you. So this is after doing the ultrasonicing without using alcohol, and you can see it's pretty much like factory. Yeah, obviously there's a scratch back there, the exposed copper from where that corrosion was, but you'd have a hard time at first glance distinguishing that from factory. Whereas if you use the alcohol, it tends to leave this sort of white, very slight white shadow over the whole board. Hey B-Dog, hey Travy. How'd your week go, Trady? Did you have any wins? Hopefully they were all wins. Oh, that's right, there was one missing long screw on this one. So what we'll do is we'll get our stash of screws and we'll stick a replacement one in there so that it's a complete screw up for the customer. Doesn't the ultrasonic clean leave? DeAndre, no, that's where you, because I wash it in deionized water or distilled water, whichever one you can get your hands on. Distilled is obviously better, but deionized is a pretty tolerable second level sort of choice. Yeah, once you rinse it in the water and then throw it in the oven, that's all you got to do. You don't have to put it through the IPA. The only reason why people were putting it through the IPA is simply to try and extract the water from the board that was still there. Okay, there it is. But if you use the combination of the compressed air and the decent oven, then you don't need to use the IPA. Travis, I have considered getting a distiller for that purpose, but great, I don't have any long ones in there. Hey Pedro. Okay, Sauna A1278, that's no good, I can't use those screws. The other problem with A1278 screws is that they have a Phillips head on the end of them, whereas we want a pentalobe. I know, it's small differences like that that make the difference overall. I've got plenty of 1466 screws there, but the wrong sort. Looks like I might have to sacrifice something. I'm just going to my other office and see if I can find any. $14.65 screws, that might be it. $14.65 being like the $14.66. Okay, not those ones, they're all too short. But yeah, these. Christian, are there any new links, etc., that we need to be aware of? I feel like I'm being asked a question that I'm supposed to have an answer for, but I feel dumb because I don't know if I've got an answer for it because I'm not sure what I'm being asked. Is that confusing enough? Okay, let's get some power into this thing. Make sure it boots up. Hey Joho and Birbas. Yeah, Toast Tech's here too. Good bong. Always a good thing to have. And that booted straight in very quickly. Very nice. Okay. We'll consider that one fixed. So I'll just update the job details. Oh, wait a second. No, we actually... Oh wait, did I turn it off? I thought I just shut the lid. Okay, no, that's good. For a moment then I thought that it might have still been idling and I had no output on this USB side, but I do, so it's all good. I just had a panic moment. Just make sure it does blink green. Because even if this one blinks green, it's no guarantee this one's going to blink green, because they are separate USB circuits. Okay, we've got a green blink, so that's good. That means that we have data link to the CPU, so all good. I don't know, Tradie, I seem to freak out more than enough times. My mods are very strange. I have mods. What did my mods do this time? And that now goes into the pack and send pile. And then we get the next one, which funnily enough happens to be another 1466. $1463. Ooh, we're getting close to having 1466 job number, and you'd kind of want to have a 1466 for job number 1466. What's the bet that's not going to happen? Okay, so it's this. Charges will not turn on. Okay. 463. Have been recommended to me by a guy I took it to in Brisbane. He's indicated to let you know it's to do with the power board and is a power fault. Alright. Let's see what happens when we plug a magsafe in and jam a chipmunk into it. Okay, chipmunk in, magsafe, go. Alright, you probably can't see this, but the power light and the 5-volt light, the power light in particular is actually coming up pretty dim. So and it's a heartbeat cycle, so we probably have a short somewhere in there, hopefully. Gym cam, well, only if we can't spot it outright. We can't always go running to gym cam. I do need to at some point come up with my own infrared camera, something that's specifically designed for techs. A bit like how I'm doing that USB-C meter for techs. Because often there are products out there that are very close to what we want, but there's a few little tweaks and adjustments that you would find makes things considerably better. So we've got a 165, of course, and we'll disconnect the battery immediately. It's very clean. We may as well just take it straight out. Always good with these boards to inspect both sides of the board regardless. Hey there, DefPom. DefPom, it was a bit long-winded to reply on Twitter to your question, which you probably already knew the answer for anyway, but the filtering cap seems to be fine. I'm only on 100 nanofarad. 1463. I'm not really going to bother increase it or anything anymore. Also, if you look closely on the screen versus on the LCD, there's a disparity between what the screen is showing as a value and what the LCD is showing as a value, and that's because the LCD is showing every 5th sample rather than every sample, whereas the screen shows every sample. Later on, people can just work out what they want to do with the raw data stream, whether they want to average it out or whatever. 463. I mean, I agree with you in the sense that 1 decimal place is probably more than ample. Anything more is pretty much noise, but people do like to see their 3 decimal places. Even if it is predominantly noise. The easiest thing I can do, DefPalm, is simply make it so that the software has an option where you can decide to, what your sampling or your super sampling rate is, or your averaging rate, and just let people tweak and do whatever. And then I'll just keep sending the register values to the PC straight out of that INA. And that means when people write their own software, if they want to do their own on-screen display or whatever, then they're not going to have to fight against any sort of other filtering that may be happening upstream. Other than, of course, that 100 nanofarad that's sitting there on the ADC input. Hey there, Ed. Yeah, 100 samples an well, I'm only doing about 10 samples a second at the moment. I can push that up to 100 samples a second. I may consider that, but for the most part, for what this is being used for, 10 is more than ample. Certainly it's a lot better than what those, these things here, they're barely 2 or 3 average samples a second, so that is kind of what compelled me to also end up making my own, is the fact that I knew that there were a lot of glitch, transient high current events occurring that these were not picking up, whereas I have been picking them up with the new one. Obviously 100 samples per second would be better than 10. It says, don't do what I did. Got an LC filter wrong on the AVCC pin. Tried a 20 milliamp PWMIO. Turned your AVR into DC boost circuit. Oh, that's tricky. Should try that. Yeah, I almost never do anything with that AVCC pin. Usually just decouple it. Again, usually 100 nanofarad, and that's it. Alright, let's have a visual. What's my favorite programming language? C. I know it's a bit antiquated, according to some people, but I do like C for the fact that it's a pretty good combination of, you can almost get away with not having to do assembly if you've got C, but at the same time you can build reasonable applications with it. As for formal training, I probably spent the first 7 years of my computer programming life informally trained, just basically just doing whatever I wanted. And then of course university came along, and so if you consider that to be formal training. Not that the course or the computer science, systems engineering and electronics engineering, while they do have programming courses in them, you actually don't really go to university to learn programming. The programming is taught to you merely so that you can then implement whatever it is you have to in order to understand there's our problem probably, understand the work that you're doing. Actually, that's probably a bigger problem. I probably had a lot more theoretical university training in things like operating system design, compiler design, and things like that, as opposed to programming. But yeah, you do generally take programming as a course simply to allow the other courses to be able to depend on you having some competence in being able to do the assignments. Why not C++? Look, I mean, I use bastardized C++. I basically have C++ified C. That's essentially my kind of programming language. I find that for the most part, C++ feels like it was written by a bunch of people who they had good intentions. They were trying to. It was almost like it suffers from the second system syndrome. So it has some great ideas, but at the same time, it's also a bit of a convoluted mess, and it just gets worse every year. Not that C is much better these days, but at least C is a very simple language at its core. Hey there, Patrick. Yeah, the one I'm talking about is the one that sits between, it sits just after the sense resistors on either side of the shunt. So basically how they do it, with the ISL and all that. So this kind of configuration here. So on the, well, where is it? There, so yeah, you got your shunt, your two 10 ohms, and then here is 100 nanofarad. So that's the only sort of smoothing I've got. And then everything else, if I'm going to do anything, it will be within the software. Yeah, there's a lot of software additions I'm going to be making. Like you said, not really so much a min, but certainly max, like long-term transient max, short-term max, all that sort of stuff. And that's why I like not to modify too much of the input data, because I prefer to then sort of go, well, here's the raw data, now we can program whatever we're looking for. Hell, throw a bit of Fourier analysis in there. I know a lot of people sort of like poo-poo on university training for programming and all that, and look, I understand that too, because they're not really there to teach you practical skills, as in, if you're going to university to walk out to do a programming job or something like that, you probably didn't really need to go to university. That's a micro call. I sort of understand why universities took on those sort of roles, but really I've always thought there was more of a trade college or something like that, which are a better fit. But then again, I suppose university departments, shouldn't be limited to just pure theoretical stuff. For the most part, computer science that I did was actually more what you would consider to be applied math, as opposed to programming. It's just essentially applied math, but specifically limited to computing. Okay, well, that will be why we're not getting anywhere, because of that, and that's a broken link. And this here won't be far behind. That'll be missing. I'm pretty sure that one's for the BIOS clock. The BIOS. I don't think it's to do with the clock. But we do have corrosion wrecking the conformal layer here. I mean, no different here either. So as it is, the more you know, the less you know. It's pretty much, that's how it goes. Like, I look at what people are posting these days on the various repair channels, and I feel like a complete idiot. It's like, I have no idea what they're doing or anything or what they're talking about. And I'll just go back here and do my cleanup on aisle 6, as they say. And I'm comfortable with that. I'm comfortable with knowing that I don't know. Mostly because I also know that, well, also know or don't know. I'm comfortable with the fact of, I feel like I understand what it is that I like doing, and that is predominantly tool making. I enjoy the challenge of trying to optimize a particular job or find something that helps you do better. And that lets me sort of scratch my prototyping, inventing itch. And I find that the combination of having that along with actually having to do repairs works out really well. Turkey from Saudi Arabia. Definitely, yeah. I always think it's, well, yeah, I'm trying to think what I'm saying here. if you go around thinking you know everything, you're obviously going to be doomed to fail. I think the hard thing for a lot of people is actually feeling like they know enough, particularly when they're surrounded by other people who seem to know a lot about things that they don't know about. And so you start to go, have I been locked in a closet all this time and stopped learning? Falling into the stop learning trap is a pretty hard thing not to do. Like, is the fact that I stay with C programming me falling in that trap, or is it that a case of I'm simply, yeah, that's all I really need to do? I mean, yeah, there are other languages I use, but C is my sort of most common hammer to use. Yeah, then exactly. And it's a little bit terrifying when you realize you go into a whole new area and you're like, oh my goodness, I've got to learn all this new stuff now. I guess it's a case of if you can get over that daunting feeling, then it's liberating to know that you're learning something new. I think the hard thing is pushing past that threshold point where you feel like you want to give up. Yeah. I feel if you can get past that sort of first wall and get your first couple of dopamine hits, then you're probably going to do alright. Alright, I'm going to go sort out micro and I'll be back. Yeah, definitely. I've tried learning Python, and I mean, it's most languages, things like C, Python, C++, Pascal, PHP, and all that. They're all essentially the same sort of structures. You've got your functions, you've got your branch things like if else, all that. So your loops. You've got all those fundamental concepts, and so when you just jump between the languages, you just get a different sort of flavor of them. So learning a new language, as long as it falls within that kind of design concept, isn't too hard. But there are often things that you hit as a brick wall that you find you just simply can't go on with it. Like in my case with Python, the whole active white space, it was a deal killer for me. I guess I'm just stubborn, but I really couldn't handle it. I tried a lot, and I've done some Python stuff, but at the end of the day, I'd probably sooner do PHP than I would Python. But I've got to go do macros injection now. Stephen W. Yes, if best way to learn programming is to have a reason for doing it. If you just learn it for the sake of learning it, in fact, most things, you're not going to learn it. It'll sort of stick on the surface of your brain for a day or two, and then it'll just blow away the next time you come across something interesting. Alright, we're back. Okay. I think one thing that helps a lot with at least being happy with life and your career choice and things like that is accepting what your current limitations are. Like, for I know, I look at my code and I look at my electronics designs and things like that, and I know that I am a, you know, average to adequate sort of person for that sort of skill base. I'm definitely not good at it in terms of, you know, I've seen people who can do some code that just blows my socks off and stuff. That is brilliant, but I don't. I'm not up to that level. A sort of adequate is about where, yeah, adequate is about where I'm at. Same with my electronics repairs or electronic designs. Adequate. And the sort of, let's see, throughout life I've tended to be the runner-up on many things. There's a couple of things that I was the winner on that I'm very happy about and I feel like I did the best. But most of the time it's runner-up. And again, I'm fine with that. Because at some point you realise you don't have to be the best. It's not to say you shouldn't try. It's not to say that you should stop learning or becoming better. But at the same time, at some point you also have to realise that you are good enough for the job. I mean, if the results are there, then that's what matters. Uh-oh. For some reason I got the shakes tonight and I'm not sure why. I guess it's a case of there's a difference between feeling like you're not good enough versus being content in your own skin. Once you sort of get to that point in life where you're content in your own skin, it probably actually makes your life easier going forward. Hey there, Shad. Know enough to be dangerous. Well, yep, that's also the other perspective of it. Need ice cream. That's actually true, I do. Catherine, along that sort of mindset, yeah, there are certain sort of things that you just can't seem to wrap your head around. Like, I, for one, cannot really understand music very well. As in, you know, I can technically see written music and I can go, okay, yeah. But there's so many variations, the ways that various artists express or put their flavour into music and just composing music, all that sort of stuff, it just blows my mind. I'm like, oh, how do you do that? Yeah, and I just can't get my head around it. Maybe it's just a practice thing, I don't know. But I think sometimes there are tasks or jobs in life that do tend to resonate better with however it is that you've decided to construct your brain. It's not to say you can't reconstruct your brain a bit, but there's definitely a resonance type thing. I wouldn't call it self-deprecation too much, Kurt. It's more a case of I'm just trying to be accepting of the fact that, you know, I don't know everything. Like, there are people who can rattle off all the various chips and parts and the various different signals that come up in what sequence they come up. They understand the, you know, various chipsets in the sense of like the Intel PCH plus whatever bits and pieces. Yeah, they really get the technicalities of it. I mean, there's stuff, even myself, that I look back on that I've coded, and these days I have no clue how I did it. It's like, yeah, okay, I was obviously just possessed that night when I did that. There's a lot of stuff you forget. If it wasn't for Google, I'd probably be doomed. Google and what's that programming site that we all use? Stack Exchange, is it? Yeah. Google, Stack Exchange, and linear datasheet examples for their parts. Yeah, the number of designs I've done simply because I just used whatever was in the linear brand datasheet for a chip. Stack Overflow, right. Like I know for the LCD that I'm using on that USB-C meter, I know that I can program my own characters into it. And I know I've done it because there's a few videos I've uploaded of some old electronics that I did for model aircraft, where I have implemented my own custom characters. Do you think I have any recollection of how I did that? Not really. I mean, I know that, you know, I created the bitmaps and broke, god damn it, lost that wire. I was too busy. Oh, it's back. But for me, it's a case of I can keep the indexes of the knowledge, but not the knowledge, if you know what I mean. I think I might use the crowbar wire for this one. Not crowbar, rebar. There we go. This is thicker than that other stuff that I was using, the Litz wire. But it doesn't have a enamel coating on it. So it's a little easier for me to just drop it down and solder it in. It doesn't help that I'm using a great big chisel tip. That might be half my problem. Yeah, Kurt, I think you're quite right about that. It does seem to be an affliction of age. And it's a question of, is it our brains getting worse, or is it that we're just filling up with a lot of information, or is it that we're just feeling lazier, or all of the above? Drop into a smaller tip, that would be cheating. There we go, use the micro pencil. The trouble with the micro pencil, of course, is that you gotta hit it a little more. That was not a pair of tweezers you had in the other pan, Paul. That was a piece of solder which now has... I think those two are connected. Famous last words. Hey there, Pilnov. Just saw you slip in there. How's your video going, Pilnov? Yep, Steve, they certainly are connected now. I'm almost certain they are connected, but I will check the board view. Actually, you know what, I'm too lazy to check the board view. I'll just check another one. Yeah, it's these two here. They're definitely connected. There's a bridge, trace, whatever. Now the only trouble with that bridge there is it's, well, to be honest, it's a tad fat, to say the least. Hey there, 10-minute tech. I find 10-minute tech, if you're really like into whatever it is that you're learning, it definitely sticks a lot better. I also find as we get older, we have a lot less time to selfishly dedicate to ourselves, and that sort of permeates all the way into the way you think, to the point where like you're trying to study, but at the same time at the back of your brain you're thinking, I've got to go deal with this and this and this, and I've got to, you can't, it's very hard to become singly focused on something as you get older. That's a really shonky job there. Can't say I'm actually really proud of that connection. We still haven't dealt with the clock and BIOS area. Oh, hey Dave. Oh, it's Momo again.
He doesn't need to come in.
Yeah, okay. He's just trying to stick his nose. You okay, Mo? Milo chucking a sook again. Okay, the connection's actually better than I thought. I didn't realise, but the trace actually does dogleg up to here, and so the portion of the connection from there to there is actually on the trace, so that is perfectly fine. Yeah, Kurt, I tend to agree with you on that. Oh wait, yeah, there you go, we already have done this section. It just looks ugly as sin. So you can clean that up as well. Hey there, Miles. I don't think putting the kitty door would be a very smart thing to do. Do not want the kitty cats in here too much. I mean, the only time they can come in here is when I'm holding them. This is definitely not the kind of room I want them to be in freely. I wish I could blame something else for my tools going missing, except I'm lucid enough to know that it's always me. Alright, so there we go with this. See if it actually, better plug in our chipmunk as well. Alright, well that's definitely staying alive now, and the current's good. It's 540, 550, so that's looking like that's fixed. We're just going to wait for the blinks. Forget the blinks, we'll be good. Then we get on with the next board. There we go, we've got the blinks. The new model Mac's more difficult to work on. If you're referring to the very latest Mac Pros with the new MagSafe on, then yes, I actually find them to be quite annoying. The USB-C models, things like the A1990 and the A2141, they are frustrating to work on, but other USB-C models I really don't mind. I have gotten to the point now with MacBook repairs where things like the 14, 1500 series machines. They're You're sort of comfortable with them simply because you've already had a few years fixing them, but overall I'm actually starting to not like repairing them, mostly because even if I get the boards going, I am worried about secondary fault issues, which is cropping up more and more frequently, just simply through age. Oh, man. So this is going to go into the ultrasonic as well. 2159s. I think I've tried those. I can't remember. But the very latest ones, yeah, with the magsafe connections back on them, no, they're terrible. So this is a 1.88. So yeah, good to see that's fixed. And yeah, it's got to go through the ultrasonic. It's actually not bad, the board, but I've managed to put enough crud and stuff like that on with the flux and messing around that I think it's a good thing to put it through the ultrasonic. Just heat up that UV just to get it to set before I throw it into the ultrasonic. Obviously I won't be doing that on stream because I can't handle the screeching of the YouTube listeners. And then of course the ultrasonic is a bit annoying as well. I'm just going to go put a sticker on something.
What are you doing? What? What is it? Oh, really? What's that? What is it? What's she doing?
Jim, did you get locked out? Oh, will I do it? Okie dokie doke. So you throw that back into the parts bin. Bring on older software means I can't use the latest version. Wait, what? Yeah, Defcon, why can't you use the latest version? You're on 10.12.6. Oh, you're on macOS, right. Yeah, I just recently had to switch over to High Sierra as my lowest sort of build because I had to step up because the libraries I was using wouldn't work on the older versions anymore. Or at least, put it this way, I was having a nightmare of a time getting them to work, so whether it actually needed it or not, I don't know. All I know is that it was a pain. So I sacrificed compatibility. I'm just gonna slice off something here. Yep, geckos are at it. Let's see, what's next? Yes, let's have a look. $22.89. $22.89 with no power. Just have to do some prep work first. Make sure I don't do something I don't want to do. Yep, okay, that's good. Kurt, it's all Australian based. I very rarely get anything outside of Australia. And to be honest, I'm deliberately not trying to field anything outside of Australia as it is, because international shipping is a nightmare. Not just in terms of cost, but in terms of risk. I mean, the number of packages that you lose internationally is terrifying. And of course, it doesn't matter if you have. It doesn't matter if it's not your responsibility or anything like that, until it gets back to the customer. Basically, from the moment it leaves the customer's hand to the moment they get it back, that whole space of time, if anything goes wrong with that computer, then it is my fault, from their perspective. And I don't mean that in a nasty way, but that is how it is in the psychological way. And so, yeah, it's bad enough with domestic shipping. I don't want to make it 100 times worse. You can have all the insurance in the world on those machines, like when you ship them. It doesn't mean squat. I mean, I have lost thousands of dollars worth of stuff, even though full tracking, everything. And they're just like, sorry sir, can't help you. And you're like, what was the point of the insurance and the tracking and everything? And you're just like, no, we don't know where it is. Can't help you. Yeah, and international shipping out of Australia is just ludicrously expensive. Okay, so this is kind of like a crossbreed of a 1708. Sort of got upgraded. Now, let's see, what is it? No power, 5 volts. I'm not gonna... maybe I will. Okay, it's not really a memory situation, so yeah, we can do it. So Apple created their own Thunderbolt chip for the new Airs. I'm not surprised. Apple really does enjoy, vertically, just doing everything vertically. And I understand why. Let's see. Is this even going to 5 volts? What's going on here? 20 milliamps, 18, 20, 19, so 5 volts, 20. I need to do something about my air filter, because it is definitely, every time it switches on and off, it definitely causes issues with the USB. Yeah, it does something to the USB hub or something, and they're not on the same power board or anything, but I think it's just that massive starting surge, and it wrecks it. Whack some ferrites on the cable. Might need more than that, but yeah. It's not playing with me at the moment. Oh well, anyway, we'll just get on with disassembling this. Put the USB on a UPS battery. Funnily enough, I was actually going to go the other way and put the fan on a USB. And then let the USB handle the kick. Not the USB, UPS. Damn you people, making me forget. I mean, as it is, the fan does start, as per most fans do like that, on the highest rate, on the highest value, but it still doesn't seem to be enough. I hate how they've done with these Wi-Fi connectors down here, because essentially you have to rip the adhesive. It's kind of like Apple's way of saying void of warranty. And so you didn't play fair there, Apple. You're not playing fair. Not that I'd expect Apple to ever play fair. Potentiometer on the fan, leave it low. Isn't that a nice way of ruining the fan? Those motors don't like starting at low levels. Tends to cause them to burn. I think the first thing I'll do is try put it on the fan on a UPS. I was originally thinking of doing that when I had the quick 861DW hot air station, because a lot of people were noticing that it was impacting their lights. Of course, to be fair, most of the time the lights it was impacting were cheap, nasty ones. But nonetheless, I was thinking of putting the quick on the UPS, so the UPS can sort of squelch that behavior a little. Where's my delightful socket? If you don't have one of these 3mm hex socket drivers, and nut drivers as they call them, it makes dealing with these quite a bit more annoying. So I don't know whether the problem is with the fan, that is. I don't know whether it's the EMP or whether it's the line itself taking a hit. I'm kind of thinking it's probably more EMP related, because the USB hub, they don't draw that much power, and there's enough capacitance within the PC and everything else like that to cope with a temporary sag. So I'm kind of thinking it's EMP just wrecking everything for a few seconds. Well, for a split second really. Guess experiments are required. Although in saying that, I would expect an EMP more when you turn it off, not when you turn it on. Who knows? Experiments required. I hate the way that they've got all these separate backlight connectors now. A good tool is worth the cost. Take that stupid shroud off. It'll only get lost and damaged if we leave it on while we're working on the board. So, 5 volts, 20 milliamp. Sounds like a hardcore short on one of the CD32 17s. I think there'll be 17s on this. Find out in a few seconds. Yep, dreaded 17s. I only say dreaded 17s because I don't have many of them. When I get a lot of them, I'll be like, oh yeah, here we go, 17 needs replacing, whoop-de-doo. But for now, it's the dreaded 17s. If I had to guess, I would say, if I don't find a corrosion on this, which I suspect I'm not going to, it's a 1987 board, by the way, that someone used a crappy charger on it and wrecked one of the 17s. The Dumres, what are you doing sending money that I will not return? Well, I don't think you paid me the $310 that just went into my account, so that was because I did a job today. But thank you to Dumres sending through his almost every single stream, about 15 Australian dollars. It's making me forever having to think, oh gosh, I need to pay this man back with some form of quality entertainment at some point. And yeah, it's pretty clean. I gotta admit though, the one thing that's concerning me is the fact that it's close to 0 milliamps. We'll check the rails and see if anything comes up as shorted. Just making sure the fuse works. Gotta do that. Okay, what about you? Oh, that's not good. That's really not good, actually. Damn it. I was hoping it wouldn't be that. Okay. Let's bring up the board view and schematic and see why I'm freaking out. I mean, to be fair, it is on the PP bus side, I'm pretty sure, so we're probably okay. I'm just being a bit paranoid, particularly because knowing the source of these machines, why they're here, 1987, why they're here, it's sort of, yeah, anyway. Stuff I cannot share at the moment, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah. Okay, so PV bus G3 hot SSDO is down, but to be fair, it's probably not the SSD stuff that's at fault. It just happens to be that that rail is PV bus G3 hot, like on here. So it goes through this current sense resistor and then becomes the SSD. So it's not going to be the SSD, at least it bloody well better not be. As if you did Defcom did a multimeter review on the Keysight U1282A, which is published next week. Found a couple of issues. Oh, cool. Keysight is going to update their specs. So you found a couple of issues. Oh, when you say update their specs, you mean revise them as opposed to post improved specs. I get it now. Yep. I misread it slightly. Also, interestingly, this current sense resistor isn't actually really there. I mean, the pads are there, aren't there? But there's no resistor there. What they just flood across it. They just like to create these current sense options, probably from when they're prototyping, and then once it goes into production, they're happy enough with it. They just bridge them through. So what we are now looking for is hopefully a cap that's decided it doesn't want to play ball anymore. I could inject 19 volts into this, but I'm not going to. And I'm joking, by the way, I would only ever put 1 volt in. But yeah, I'm just sort of on the lookout for a caploded cap, probably a ceramic. Hey, Repair It All. See you later, Warren Stamps. Thank you always for being here. Dadumres, how dare you make such an accusation? You know it's not for cost cutting. That's their harsh words you're saying. They're harsh words. Steve Jobs will cry over that. Come on, you gnarly cap, where are you? Hard short like you are. Come on. Reveal yourself. Like I said, using GymCam and injecting a volt in often will reveal it, but I would prefer to find it visually first. See you later, Travis. I'm going sideways here because I have been finding recently with some ceramic cap failures is they'll blow out to the side in a way that you really don't see it on the top. Once you find that cap, you can actually see that there is a bit of a jet blast out the side. I thought it was a crack, but it was actually just a piece of hair. And I always check these audio amp chips because they frequently seem to get hit with just random liquid crap. And because they are on the PP bus, makes them obvious candidates for the failure. Like I said, same with the iPhones. They do the same thing. The speaker driver amp chip is directly on the PP bus bat. And so if they get damaged, they take out the whole thing. Bit of junk there on that. Come here. The other reason why you've got to go at these sort of repairs or diagnoses as sort of gently as you can is because obviously there's data on here. And it's because of the fact that there's data on here that it's actually in my workshop. And so I will tend to spend a bit more time doing things as non-invasively as I can. Even though it bores the hell out of everybody. But other than very few of you, I don't get paid by you. And no offense to anyone watching thinking, oh, how dare he. It's just more a case of the amount that I get paid to fix this pales in comparison. I mean, to what you contribute as viewers. That cap there looks really gnarly, but it's actually just the texture of the cap. I'm going to see if I can get a heartbeat using the gym cam and just using the USB. Oh man, moth just went up my nostril. Yeah, exactly, Defcom. You don't want that. You know, you make a mistake and bam, you're down. But sorry, phone was just doing funny things. Oh, let's hope that the gym cam's actually charged up. And now I've got to find the cable for it. There we go. That's a rare event. Let's see if it actually does have power. If we're very lucky, we may see something come up, but I'm going to say this is probably like 50-50, more like 99-1. Nothing specifically showing up. Over here might be a culprit. We'll just keep an eye on that, see if that. Let's see, we'll disconnect the power and see if it goes away. It's not going away, so it's probably just a reflective chip, and yeah, there is one actually there. That's the audio chip over there. Okay, where the hell do the crosshairs go now? Oh, to that. Kurt, no, I've actually had this one quite some time now. Sent to me from Jim Hook, and then I wrote some new software for it. Again, that's just the ISL, it's been reflective. I'm a little concerned about the fact that we've got pixels poking up over there. That's not a good thing. Though usually when RAM fails, it tends to sit around about the 5 or 6 ohm mark. What I am finding interesting is that this over here, it's still actually showing up. I'll just see if it is the same point. Let me just try and heat this up. Trying to heat the plastic up and then point. So that actually dark spot that I was looking at is a little over here, so we might have something just over here by the audio circuit. Fingers crossed. Deathpalm, I'm actually surprised we don't have a just a simple infrared camera. You get the pixel values, you post-process them as you want. Well, I guess that's what I'm planning on doing when I start my own version. I'll still be using something like a FLIR Lepton core or something like that, but aside from that, let's see. So it was sort of in this area that there was a little bit of a darkness. I gotta admit, I'm not seeing anything that remotely looks like. This cap here kind of has a bit of an iffy look to it, but then again, so do they all. Once you start getting down to this level of zoom, everything looks suspicious. Makes you realize how amazing electronics are, that they can produce things like 0201 parts with any sort of degree of repeatability. Or maybe they don't. Maybe they just sample them after they've made them and say, okay, well, what are you now? And then bin them accordingly. It looks like I might have to go for the injection route. Like I said, I'm very disinclined to do so. It's not my tool of choice, but I am struggling to find anything blatant. Of course, if it does show up, that's just a bit of dirt, by the way. If it does show up, when I look at it again, I'm like, oh yeah, of course, I can see the ejection material or something like that. Just trying to think of the appropriate location to put my injection point on. Guess we'll just check the schematic. And look for see where PP bus shows up that we might be able to tag on pretty good. I guess we'll just go straight for the fuse. It's not the biggest point, but it hopefully should be good enough. Yeah, we'll just go for the fuse. It's a little close to that grounding ring. Wouldn't want to accidentally have your cable flex over and then touch that. Mind you, the worst it will do is just tick off the power supply a lot. I'm leaving the fuse intact just in case it's actually upstream from the fuse. Ah, why are you over here? Just trying to pick out an appropriate cable. First thing I do before I touch anything is I will set the power supply appropriately. So 1 volt. We're going to start with 2 amps. They'll be fine. Just check that it reports that. Yep. Not the sort of thing you want to make mistakes on. Hey there, Jason. Did you get the notifications today, Jason? With regards to your package? Okay, first thing I'm just going to do is see what comes up when we turn it on. Okay, we're getting 800 milliwatts, so this is definitely going to show up. And if it doesn't show up, that means it's a CPU or something like inner circuit board fault. Put it this way, if it doesn't show up, it's probably not going to be something we can fix. Okay, Jason. Well, anyway, the packages are on their way to you, so you should get it Monday. And I've got to send you some money too. A couple of hundred, in fact. Alright, so here we go. Okay, there we go. Right over here, right next to, or just below, I can see the cat, yep. Okay, fault found. Thank goodness for that. You have no idea how my heart rate's going at the moment. I really do not enjoy doing that sort of thing with these particular jobs. I guess because I get paranoid about the fact that if I make the wrong step, do I lose the ability to get any of their data back? Alessandro, we're using Flexboard View. It's that cat. And look, how is it that I did not see that? This is what I was talking about. You know, I said once we know what it is, we will see it. Look at it. It's a complete and utter train wreck. You can see it's vented out the side. It's pitted up the top. How do you not spot that? I'm ashamed of myself. It is a FLIR system. It's a FLIR 1 Pro. It's 120 by 240 by 160 resolution, this one. I'm just pickling the capacitor pads out the side. I'm just trying to reduce the amount of heat I need to put into this board. I'm a little worried that it kind of looks, because of that pitting, I'm worried it may have tried to weld itself. Okay, thankfully not. No, it certainly wasn't intentionally missed, it was just stupidly missed. Ah, Pedro, quit your bitching. You get all the nice, easy, granny steel jobs. May as well clean up these now. Yeah, Pedro, you'd be a good fit for Saul Goodman in terms of character, I think. Particularly when he's doing Elder Law. It's not perfect, but it'll be okay. Oh, there's way too much solder. Oh well. Anyway, we need to find out what part we need. So it's this one here. It's going to be something stupid like 22 microfarad. And, oh no, 10 microfarad, 25 volt, 603. Oh wow, it's actually a normal capacitor. A normal capacitor. Don't normally get them. And when I say normal, I mean it's not some weird, obscure, right at the limits of technology value that Apple loves to use. Then again, it might be. I've still got to find it. Let's see. What was it? 10 microfarad what? 10 microfarad, 25 volts. 10 microfarad, 25 volts, 603. Brand new packet too. Fresh from Element 14. Yeah, very nice of them to make it a 603. I do wish that they would start printing the values on the strips. I know that, I think it's DigiKey or Mouser now does it. Because it's a very handy thing to have. I mean, sure, it's fine if I keep it in this bag, but what happens if I lose the bag by some reason? And you think, well, can't you just measure it? And it's like, yeah, okay, for capacitors, true. I can put it on the capacitor tester and I will come up with 10 microfarad. But then what's the voltage rating? That's the problem with capacitors. At least with resistors, it's not a problem. The capacitors, you really want to know what that voltage rating is. Does the FlexBV part search only look for PDFs? It's all in the PDFs, yeah. And then if you have structured your files in a nice way, like what I do, then when it finds it in the PDF, it will load it up with the board view, the matching board view that's associated with that PDF. Get some micro shot. I know those things, and it just, yeah. I'll keep them in my little boxes for now. I mean, it is tempting, but I'm not sure I'm the right person for that kind of thing. I just had to clean up that bottom pad because I could see that when it reflowed, it had that slightly grainy look, which means it was perhaps a risk of being a cold join. I really don't want a cold join in here. I'm just making things worse right now. I suppose something I should have done before I even put that on there is check to see if it's shorted. And we're all good. Should be, while it's warm, 300's fine. As it cools down, it should rise up. Putting things in boxes is about my level of, yeah. Now, I'm a little bit paranoid here. A little bit of liquid, you know, from the wash and all that went under that chip. Now I'm paranoid. There's no reason for me to be that paranoid, but I just am. Oops. Well, it's a 62 180, so I might as well. I find it frustrating that when you look at the schematic, it doesn't actually say it's a 62 180. Okay, Kurt, take care. Flip. You okay? Thanks. So pin 1 is up top right, and then we've got a little bit more flux, not too much, not too little. Yeah, just right. You put too much in there and it flies away. Put not enough there, it gets all dry and crusty. It's going to drop our air down to about 60 though. Shut up, Gecko. Flipping heck. I feel like that's just a smidge off, so I'm gonna, now at least that it's down, I can, you know, do this without it flying off. Okay. It's the TriStar. Of course it's the TriStar. We're just waiting for the board to cool down. Gives a chance to clean up some dregs. Put some boxes away, put some parts away so they don't just start accumulating on my bench more than they already do. Pick up fallen tools. What do you mean no job in screen? There's job. What's this? Job data? Unless you're meaning on the microscope screen. Yeah, that's probably right. There you go. That was 470 I was using. But it does vary considerably depending on your ambient environment, how far away you are from these things. Yeah, there's just so many factors. So you pick somewhere in the mid 400s and you're working it out from that. Let's see how you go. Okay, 330. Okay, 5, 6, 700. That's good. Okay. The 6700 is the NAND SSD one, so basically all of this is $393. Yeah. There we go, 900, 1K, so yeah, that's fine. Basically, that's SSD is 1K of resistance on it, which is about normal for the board in this state. Let's see what I can do about my USB-C meter. For some reason it's no. Yeah, for some reason, like I said, it's the fan creates some sort of weird pulse that kills most of my USB-C USB devices on a particular hub. Let's see. Okay, it's on USB 1. That's more like it. Picking up some interesting values there. Just picking up some random crap floating around in the workshop. Need some more isolation. Actually, I'm just going to plug it into something else just to verify before I... See, everything is still in the testing phase at the moment, so if I'm going to risk anything, I want to make sure it's... Oh, that's completely whacked. It's like I've got a conflict going on there with the comms port. So as you can see on here, it's showing the correct... I think I might have two programs trying to... Oh, I do! I've got two programs trying to read it simultaneously. There you go. Right, that fixes that. Okay. These are the small things that are big things that I have to sort out with the software. Yeah, it just takes time to go through and clear out those kind of bugs and add the subtle features that make it change from being typical open source to a polished product. Okay, 5 volts, 20 volts. So current's a little low. 140. Okay, now, yeah, okay, we're good. Yep. Okay, so it looks like that's fixed. Put it back into the chassis. With this particular situation, I am actually being told not to ultrasonic the boards. So it's kind of a win for me in a way. Mostly because when you're dealing with data recovery, once you actually get it to the point where the board will boot, it is sensible to just simply walk away from it and let the data recovery happen and just go from there. Backlight. What? Why would I have a backlight on my LCD? I don't like backlights on my LCDs. I like them to work with the natural light that is around. I guess everybody... That's the other thing you got to be careful of when you start doing production, is you can very easily end up creating a... well, you seen the episode of The Simpsons where Homer creates the car? Yeah. It's very easy to end up with that sort of scenario. Using little bits of masking tape make the process of getting these boards, not so much these ones, but when you get up to things like the 1700 board or the 1041s and things like that, it just makes it easier to have something holding back those flexes for you. There we go. I mean, there's enough to contend with without having all the itty bitty ones around. Big fan of e-paper. Stephen, I actually agree with you. I think around about 10 years ago or so, I was desperately looking for a high resolution 13-inch e-ink display. Yeah, 4 to 5 frames per second would have been fine. Sony did have I think it was Sony, they had a 13-inch, but they weren't letting anyone get access to it other than themselves. Subsequently, their product pretty much died. Now I know we do have some more recent advances, and there's some nice 10-inch ones out there. And I've actually got a few e-ink development kits here, but again, too many people are trying to like capture the product, how can I put it, their own sort of device that utilizes e-ink. Like I think it's Vision Connect or something. They produce what should be a nice device, and I guess it is, but you've got to use all their software stack to send the imagery to the device and all that sort of stuff, rather than just simply going, look, here is an e-ink device that has a standardized display interface on it, something like that. But yeah, I do really like the e-ink. My wife, being a author, she of course has her Kindles, and we bought a Onyx 10-inch one, and it almost worked for what I wanted, but there were some small issues that unfortunately ended up being showstoppers. But it was pretty close. It was pretty close. That was about 6 years ago, I think I got the Onyx. So things have probably improved since then. E-ink actually would work quite nicely with that setup, in terms of you need maybe 2 or 3 frames per second, maybe 5 if you really had to. It'd be nice if they had a LCD matrix e-ink, basically a replacement for what I'm using now, but it's e-ink, but you interface with it all the same way. The refresh will be a bit distracting. It could be. I guess it depends on what algorithm they use for the refresh. And being such a small display, it might not be too bad. It's one of those things that you have to just build it to see. Yeah, I bought a couple of the no battery wireless e-ink displays that you just use the near field communication NFC, and it powers them enough to update the screen, and then you just take your phone or whatever it is away, and then it's set. And I was planning on using that for my jobs here. So what I would do is I would like have it maybe mounted on here, and then as I put it down on the desk, it would then, whatever I do on here, it would update on that, so that when I'm going through my shelves, I can just pull this out and have a look at whatever the status of the job is, whether it's waiting on something and all that sort of stuff. But I couldn't get it to quite work how I wanted, so I sort of abandoned it for now. I figured give it another 5 years and see how it is after then. And I did like the fact that, of course, it was a no battery required situation. Did you put the last screw in that connector? Which connector? I'll know when I get to the end if I haven't. Oh, you're talking about this one? No, I haven't. No, it's sitting there in the container. I think the word you were after was the retainer plate. But yes, I got the idea. James Lovelock, yes, PV Bus G3 Hot was shorted. And it just so happened to be, purely by coincidence, that it was shorted right against the SSD power line generator. That's where I initially went to test, and it happened to be right there. So that's quite a coincidence, really, because that PV bus short could have occurred anywhere across the circuit board. Catherine, no, the ticket system I use is unique to me. It's the job system I use is something I did in PHP. It's a single file and it runs off SQLite, and yeah, it does the job fine. There's a few things I could improve, like so much of my software, but I like it for the fact that it's very simple. It only has the one static, or not static, it has the one SQLite database file, the one PHP file. Everything's self-contained. It just makes it easy to move it around if I have to. Stephen, yeah, it probably was. I'll have to go back and have a look. That's pretty sad that I was right there and I missed it. I definitely should deduct points from my skill level for that. Okay, what else have we got? Looks like that's everything. The whole thing with things like ticketing software, job management software, is that the more features you add to it, the more features people will want. It's like trying to round out a circle, like making a perfect circle using square blocks. So you sort of like go, oh, well, I'll fill in that gap there, and that makes it a little bit rounder now. But then there's more things that people want. They're like, oh, well, you're so close to integrating with this other product that we need in our shop. Why don't you do that? Just add it. And that is pretty much how most CMS, tracking, invoicing, accounting type software packages end up. They just become this huge mess that tries to do everything, and you sort of become so invested in them in terms of training and whatnot that you can never really get away from them. Hi, Eric. Yeah, that's the other thing is a lot of the time when you're getting started, you can't envisage, or you don't want the whole set of features. You're kind of like, I really just want to track jobs, nothing else. Unfortunately, once you get comfortable with that software, at that point, then you sort of go, I really wish I had this feature or that feature, and that's where the fun starts. I mean, even myself, I sort of think to myself, it'd be good if I could just add this to my software. Okay, make sure you guys can't see that screen. Just plug this in and fingers crossed. Okay, 20 volts up. Uh-oh. Okay, it's come up with an Apple logo. I don't know why it dropped to 5 volts there for a second though. Oh, mind you, these are 3217, so I think the behavior might be that little bit different, particularly from a cold boot. We've got a mouse cursor, and we have we do indeed have a display. So here we go, we're working. Great. Interestingly enough, the battery's at 100%. Which is why now the current is pretty much just sitting around 300-400, because that's simply all it needs to maintain the running state. That's great. Another job done. And it's now midnight, which means I'm done for the night as well. Get to go watch some Better Call Saul, have some food, play with the kids, talk to a leader. Yeah, all the fun things in life. Okay, I'm out of here. You take care. I'll see you next time, whenever that may be. Might be tomorrow, might be next week. Hard to say. It's a weekend, so I don't have any more new jobs coming in. So who knows? You'll take care of yourselves, and thanks for watching. I appreciate it. I'll see you next time.